the keys are to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. Time to talk about the 49ers and Saints defensive key matchups. 49ers got some tough matchups in this game. The Saints are definitely not devoid of talent. They've got a lot of ability in the wide receiver room. They've got a stud tight end. They've got a running back room that has a couple of guys that can make some things happen. We all know Alvin Kamara can make things happen both in the run game and the passing game. So there are some unique obstacles for the 49ers to have to overcome. And of course, last week, Spencer Rattler threw the ball 46 times. It was in a losing effort, but what it showed is a willingness to let him go ahead and let it spin. And that's exactly what that offense tried to do. Now, is that exactly tailor-made to beat the 49ers defense? I don't think so. I'm sure that Kellen Moore would like to find a little bit more balance in his offense this week. And one of the ways to go about that is to get the ball into Alvin Kamara's hands, get the ball into other running backs' hands and let them create. What we're going to go through in this episode is the 49ers' key matchups that they have to win on defense. So, what does Fred Warner and D. Winters have to do against Alvin Kamara? And, what is Robert Saleh going to look for and how is he going to attack? And then we're also going to talk about some of the injuries with the Saints offensive line. Who's likely to play? Who's not likely to play? We're going to talk about that, all about that in this episode. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I really appreciate it. If you're listening on audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network, please give it a 5-star rating. If you're going to bet with FanDuel. Right now, the FanDuel has the 49ers at a 3-point favorite and for the over-under to be 40.5. Now, right now, I think this game is going to hit the under. Of course, I'll kind of have even more of an understanding of this. Tomorrow I'm going to do the game preview show. But right now, the under's looking pretty good unless you think Mac Jones or Spencer Rattler is really going to open up the offense against these pretty good defenses. So if you're going to bet, bet with FanDuel. They are the title sponsor of 49ers Cutback. But let's get into these matchups. And I want to start with one that I think is probably needs to be the most highlighted. And that is running back Alvin Kamara against the 49ers linebackers. And I understand Alvin Kamara is not alone in that backfield, that he's got a very talented running back with him in Keandre Miller. Miller busted out a big run last week. But Alvin Kamara is the centerpiece of what makes this Saints offense successful. If Alvin Kamara is successful running the football against this 49ers defense, that is going to make things easier for Spencer Rattler. That's going to take some of the pressure off a injury-laden offensive line. So getting that run game established with Alvin Kamara is going to be one of the key elements that this Saints offense is going to want to do. And I felt like last week they really kind of went away from the run game and kind of didn't stick with it. I wonder if Kellen Moore wishes he wouldn't have thrown the ball 46 times, but maybe would have thrown it 10 less times, 36 times, and had 10 more carries for his running back room. But what makes Alvin Kamara difficult is not only can he run with great vision, which he has, the athleticism to be able to run outside zone, inside zone, run inside, run outside. He could do it all, but also his ability to catch the ball in the backfield. And when you have a dual threat player like Alvin Kamara, there's a lot of opportunities for Spencer Rattler to be able to check the ball down, find him, and let him create in space. So when you see a guy like Alvin Kamara, you've got to figure out a game plan of, hey, how can we kind of keep this guy bottled up? It's not about stopping Alvin Kamara. You don't really stop him. You're just hoping to limit him, bottle him up, keep him, within means and not let him blow up and have a huge game. So for the 49ers, that means attention to Alvin Kamara. Where's 41? You've got Fred Warner. You've got D. Winters. Those guys are going to be the primary linebackers for the 49ers, because when you're in 11 personnel as an offense, Luke Gifford from the 49ers defense is coming off the field. So that means a lot of the attack is going to those other two guys. Now, the good thing for the 49ers is D. Winters matches up very well with Alvin Kamara in the passing game. D. Winters is one of the best coverage linebackers in the NFL. And I know it's just been one game playing will linebacker this season, but I'm telling you, this dude has figured it out. This guy runs around, he makes plays, he covers great in space, and of course, he could go out there and struggle and make me look stupid, but I really believe he's figured this thing out. Last year, we've seen his coverage grade skyrocket when he got over to will linebacker down the stretch, and we've seen it in practice. We've seen it in training camp. We've seen it in the preseason games. He just understands what he's supposed to do, and this is going to be the big test. He was okay against Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker last week. Well, now here's your test. Alvin Kamara out of the backfield. Can you stick with them? Now, some of the time, you're just in zone coverage, right? So it's as simple as just making a tackle in space. That was one thing we saw from D. Winters last week. He tackled great in space. Space is the enemy of a defense. It is the friend of an offense. And last week, the 49ers tackled well in space, and that's going to be one of the keys. Alvin Kamara is not just shifty. He's got shake to him, but he's also got more power than you think for a guy that is athletic as him. So it's going to take more than, just a shoulder to knock this guy down. You're going to have to hit him. You're going to have to wrap up. You're going to have to grab cloth and get him to the ground. No extra yardage after contact. That's going to be one of the keys for D. Winters. But Fred Warner and D. Winters are going to be paying a lot of attention to what Alvin Kamara does, whether that's running the ball or catching. Now, when they're in the run game, the 49ers definitely want to keep him hemmed up. That means set strong edges from Nick Bosa and Mikael Williams and Sam Okuwanu and Huff. They've got to set firm edges and keep Alvin Kamara from getting out in space where he can really use his dynamic speed and athleticism and vision to get extra yardage. So that's going to be one of the keys. And then on the inside, you're going to have to make sure you don't get pushed around, and that's going to keep these linebackers free. Defensive linemen getting on these offensive linemen and eating up blockers is going to be one of the keys to keeping D. Winters and Fred Warner free to be able to do things they need to do. But I think that the 49ers got a good opportunity to slow down Alvin Kamara. He hasn't had big games against the 49ers in the past, so this is a matchup I think that they can win. A matchup that really fits well for the 49ers in the way that they build their linebacker crew with hyper-athletic, gifted, really instinctual players, and they're going to have, their work cut out for them. Now, also, another key matchup in this game has to be the 49ers NASCAR unit versus the Saints offensive line. We'll talk about the run defense in a second, but that NASCAR unit of Nick Bosa, Bryce Huff, Yetur Gross-Matos, and Mikael Williams, and then sometimes Sam Okuwanu playing on the inside, that unit against what you're going to see from the Saints. And the reason I say that is, now the news is Talise Fuaga, the right tackle for the New Orleans Saints, did practice for the Saints on Friday. So just like you got from Trent Williams, you're getting Talise Fuaga with an opportunity to play. He's listed as questionable. They will be without Trevor Penning for another week, so they're not going to have Trevor Penning at guard. Chase Young is going to be out, and so is Julian Blackmon. But they do at least have Fuaga, so that's going to change things up because on the left side, you've got Kelvin Banks Jr., and 49er fans studied Kelvin Banks Jr. extensively in his time in Texas because if the Saints wouldn't have taken him with the number 9 overall pick, there is a really good chance that Kelvin Banks would have been a 49er at 11 if they would have took Mikael Williams, right? They were looking at each other's players. So now you're going to have Mikael Williams lined up against Kelvin Banks and against Talise Fuaga. And this NASCAR unit for the 49ers was so good last week. Well, guess what? Spencer Rattler was only sacked one time. The 49ers need to get home and rattle Rattler. Well, how do you do that? Well, you earn the right to rush the passer. Early down success, which we'll talk about in a second, provides that opportunity. 49ers need to make sure when they get to third and medium, third and long, that they get home against Rattler. Last week, they were only able to get one sack against the Seattle Seahawks. What did Sam Darnold do? He threw the ball at 2.4 seconds. Last week, guess what? You got from Spencer Rattler a release time of 2.4 seconds. So you're going to have to win, and you're going to have to win fast to get to Spencer Rattler. So this is one of those times where this unit for the 49ers has a chance to go against a rookie, to go against Talise Fuaga, who's not 100%, to work on Dylan Radins, who's not a starting guard normally for this football team. So you've got an opportunity to win, and that means using your hyper athleticism with Mikael Williams and with Yetur Gross-Matos inside, who had the number one pressure rate on the inside of any defensive lineman in the NFL, an opportunity for those guys to go get home. And that's exactly what you have to see, is those guys go get home. And so the 49ers NASCAR unit needs to generate pressure. And it's not going to be all on them. We saw Robert Saleh dial it up with 5- and 6-man pressures last week. And I think that's going to have to be in the cards as well. Get Upton Stout coming off the edge, or Jason Pinnock coming, from the safety spot on a blitz, or D. Winters, who absolutely annihilated Zach Charbonnet when he stepped up to block Winters on a blitz pickup. That's the type of thing that gets them uncertain, unsteady, a little rattled in the pocket, and an opportunity to make things happen and make them make mistakes. So I think that we need to have a little bit more success when it comes to sacks. The pressure was there from the NASCAR unit. Now we just needed to result in sacks with that 4-man group and sometimes Sam Okuwanu, and that's going to be a big part in this. The stunts, the twists, the things that the 49ers were able to do, the blitzes off that, the exotic looks. One time they ran a fire zone blitz, and you literally saw Mikael Williams drop into coverage on the play, and they brought 2 linebackers. It was a great look, was very successful, made Darnold get rid of the ball, throw an incomplete pass. So those are some things you got to do to that Saints offensive line. Now, next up, I want to talk about that interior part of the Saints offensive line against the 49ers interior defensive line. And here's where I think the Saints could have a little bit of an advantage. So on the inside, yes, Trevor Penning is missing, but Dylan Radins has started a lot of games in the NFL. Cesar Ruiz is still a very talented interior offensive lineman. And of course, Eric McCoy on the inside as well. I think that they have an opportunity to catch the 49ers starting defensive line being too aggressive. So last week, Kalia Davis, Jordan Elliott, hyperactive, hyper aggressive, and occasionally that took Jordan Elliott out of the proper placement. He got out of his gap, he got out of his area, and they were able to kind of find some space to run the ball. I think that that's one way to attack the 49ers defense. Use the aggressiveness of Jordan Elliott and Kalia Davis against them. But then there's also that Bravo unit for the 49ers defensive line, which is Alfred Collins and CJ West. And you have the ability to potentially double them and get some movement up front. So if you can generate movement, and those guys have struggled with pad level so far, you can create some opportunities to get some push into the linebackers and be able to get Fred and D. Winters to where they can't disengage and be able to get through traffic to the running back. So there's 2 different ways to go about this. It's using the aggressiveness of the starting defensive lineman against them, and using the rookie, rookie abilities against Alfred Collins and CJ West, who just haven't developed in their techniques and their understanding of what they need to do against veteran offensive linemen and veteran schemes. So 2 different ways to go about it. And I think we might see the Saints kind of employ 2 different methods against them. Is, let's be hyper aggressive and try to blow up those guys that are on that second unit and that first unit. Let's let their aggressiveness work against them. Let's trap them. Let's run some plays where we allow them to go upfield. We don't even have to block them. I think that there's going to be some opportunities for the Saints in the running game. And we know the 49ers want to slow down that running game of the Saints. You don't want to let them run wild. You don't want Alvin Kamara to get going or Keandre Miller to break a big explosive run. So I think that there's 2 different methods here. Now, I did like Kalia Davis and Jordan Elliott, what they did last week. Kalia Davis had a really great move where he jumped inside, went right around the puller and made the tackle. It was phenomenal. Elliott had some plays that were great, but their aggressiveness sometimes definitely can take advantage of them. So that's something to monitor when we're talking about that interior portion of the defensive line for the 49ers. Now, next up, I want to talk about Robert Saleh versus Spencer Rattler. And last week, you got to give credit to Coach Kellen Moore. it was a good game plan to go fast. And why do I say go fast when it comes to getting to the line of scrimmage and running another play? Well, a couple of things. First off, it keeps the same personnel on the field for the defense. They don't have time to sub. That's number one. Number two, it also doesn't allow the defense to be as exotic. It doesn't allow them to run a bunch of different coverages. It doesn't allow them to come in with different blitzes that they could possibly run. Like, it's harder to communicate when you're going fast. So that gives an advantage to a young quarterback when the plan is especially to get rid of the football, get it into his playmakers' hands, and let them create, right? 2.4 seconds, boom, boom, boom. So you understand the game plan there. Now, here's the problem. They will probably run some variation of that this week. They might even try to go into it. But this is where Robert Saleh, seeing it on film, can already have a little bit of a jump start on it. He can be prepared with some shell coverages they show pre-snap. And Coach Kellen Moore talked about this in his presser. Robert Saleh is one of the best about showing you a man look, even in motion, right? They'll motion a guy, see if somebody goes with them to illustrate that it's man coverage, and then all of a sudden they're running zone. And the way that he flips from man to zone is highly successful and does create some confusion with that quarterback. That's going to be one of the things I want to see the 49ers do. How much of a grip do they have on this defense where they can go from what they're showing Spencer Rattler pre-snap, whether it's from the huddle or they're going quick, to post-snap? And how quickly can he decipher what he's looking at? Am I going to get a quarters? Am I going to get a cover three? Are the 49ers going to have a lurch defender in the middle of the field, which they did last week against Seattle? Is a blitz coming? Where's it coming from? Where's my hot? The more you can make Spencer Rattler think, the more you're going to be able to get after him. Because if he's not just in rhythm, that means he's holding on to the football or he's willing to throw and make a mistake. That's exactly what you have to have happen. This is where marrying that style of what Robert Saleh has to do to Spencer Rattler to that NASCAR package getting home on sacks. All of a sudden, he's thinking an extra second. He's holding on the football, and boom, you get home because you had an extra second of an advantage. Now, it's not as simple as just confusing Spencer Rattler. It also is going to include that 49ers secondary playing pretty darn good. And they got the tools to do it. Renardo Green, yeah, he got beat on the deep vertical by Jackson Smith and Jigba got pretty much everyone but Demo last week. And that is expected. That's going to happen. And it's not going to be easy this week. You've got a really good route runner in Chris Olave. He's a very good young player. Brandon Cooks is a savvy veteran who can play any of the positions and understands how to play NFL quality wide receiver, runs good routes, still has adequate speed, got pretty good hands, and has some yak ability as well. And then they got Shaheed as well. And so that is a really good wide receiver room when you think about not only are they all fast, but they're all pretty good route runners. So it's going to be a test for the 49ers. And so it's not going to be as simple as, hey, I can just run all these coverages. It has to be executed as well. And so these cornerbacks have to be on point, and they have to know who they're going against. You can't just squat on short routes. That's one of the things when a quarterback is really about getting rid of the football quickly. You want to jump those routes, and that's what we saw happen last week, right? Upton Stout got caught peeking in the backfield on an out and up, and he got burned deep. Then later in the game, Renardo Green got hit with the stop and go, and he was peeking in the backfield because he thought, yep, here it comes. They're going to run a quick stop route. This is what they do on offense, and they lull you to sleep, and then the next thing you know, they've got a big play down the field. I think that's something the Saints can definitely do in this because they do want to get rid of the ball quickly. So even though you want to jump on those routes and you want to suffocate the underneath routes, it's very smart to kind of play off and be protective of any deep vertical passes. You do not want to let those guys get behind you. Explosive plays are enemies. Make them execute down the field. You've got to make Spencer Rattler complete multiple passes, and you have to count on, one or two of these are not going to be successful, and you're going to force them into a third and long where you can get after him. So it's kind of one of those things you have to work with. But Robert Saleh is going to want to get after Rattler. He wants to keep him moving. He wants to keep him guessing. He wants to keep him off balance. And the easiest ways to do that is just continue to give him different looks. And it doesn't matter really what he's doing pre-snap, as long as post-snap, it changes from time to time. And I think that is where Robert Saleh really makes his money is the fact that he can keep these guys off balance. And Spencer Rattler, he wants to feel comfortable. He wants to get in a rhythm. He wants to be able just to put his back foot and throw. And that's something that Saleh is going to try to do. So expect blitzes this week. Some exotic, some very very simple. Expect some twists and stunts up front, especially with some of the injuries to the Saints offensive line. Expect the 49ers to test Talise Fuaga and test rookie Kelvin Banks with some things that make these guys move laterally and make them hold up in the time of pressure. Now, another matchup I want to talk about that I think is very important is tight end Juwan Johnson for the New Orleans Saints. Last week, he was very impressive against the Arizona Cardinals. In fact, I thought he really jumped off the screen with what his capabilities are. And the reason this one's important is because 49ers linebackers, even though they'll be in some zone, they'll be in some man, they've got a lot to worry about when it comes to Alvin Kamara and what he's able to do out of the backfield. And normally when you play a very strong tight end, your linebackers are very much engaged in the game plan. I think this one's going to have to go back and forth. Linebackers and safeties are going to have to work together in tandem to slow down Juwan Johnson. Now, he's not the most athletic guy, but he's got enough athleticism and enough size and some pretty good hands to make it difficult on you. And the reason I want to highlight this one, especially when you look at the 49ers safety room, they've got the youngster Marquise Siegel, and Siegel has been phenomenal. But do you really want to see Marquise Siegel one-on-one with a veteran like Juwan Johnson, a guy that has immense size that can use his body against Siegel? Siegel, though really good against the Seahawks, did have some struggles in the last preseason game when it came to coverage. So what is that going to look like for Siegel? And if it's not Siegel, who makes the most sense with all of his time at Kansas State playing in the dime as a corner or nickel as a corner and that ability to cover in space, it might be Jason Pinnock, who, guess what, was originally drafted as a nickel corner by Robert Saleh in New York. So Pinnock and Marquise Siegel have versatile ability to cover in space. I think that's a big reason why these two are the starting safeties for the 49ers right now. Marquise Siegel is probably going to have moments where he's on Johnson, and I think Pinnock is going to as well. Sometimes it's going to be Fred, because Fred is the best coverage corner or coverage linebacker in the NFL. D. Winters is getting there. And so you've got this dude that's long, he's tall, he's strong, he's fast, and Fred Warner, he can have some of those matchup abilities as well. So how they occupy different guys is going to be interesting, because you can't give over-the-top help on Chris Olave and over-the-top help on Rashid Shaheed and over-the-top help on Juwan Johnson and still be able to cover underneath Alvin Kamara and Brandon Cooks. Like, it is just a tough task. So what do you do to neutralize when they have so many weapons? You put pressure on the quarterback. That's why I think that, that moment of Robert Saleh getting after, Spencer Rattler and bringing pressure is going to be important. Sometimes it needs to be just those front four. Other times it's got to be 4, 5, 6 guys coming after Spencer Rattler. But that's one of the matchups I'm a little concerned about. Johnson versus the safeties of the 49ers. I know the linebackers are up to the task, but the safeties, because you've got a young guy in Siegel, and you've got Jason Pinnock, who's really in year 2 of being a safety in the NFL and his first year with the 49ers. So, yeah, he understands this scheme to a point, but in the grand scheme, you got to have some things worked out. You got to get some guys covered. So 49ers need to stop the run game, earn the right to rush the passer. You're going to hear this is going to be a constant theme all season long. 49ers built this defense to stop the run, and they built this defense to get after the quarterback on third down. They have 2 distinct units and personnel groupings for that. Part of the reason they kept 11 defensive linemen, because they wanted to be able to stop the run consistently and then rush the passer on third down. That's exactly what they've built. Then they've gotten even more hyper-athletic on defense. They added hyper-athleticism at linebacker, right? Nick Martin's not helping, but D. Winters has elevated his game. He is super fast and athletic, and Luke Gifford is long and smart. So they've got a good unit there. Then you look at the secondary. Last year, Renardo Green, 4-3 cover guy. They add him. Upton Stout got the ability to move and run. Marquise Siegel, 4-3. Pinnock, former nickel corner. You see the versatility, the speed, the athleticism. Stop the run early, get after the quarterback late. and they're just going to take that plan and try to put it in this game. Different sum of parts for the Saints than Seattle, but the normal blueprint rings true. That's what you have to do. So Alvin Kamara is going to be one of the keys. So these are the matchups that I really want everyone to focus on in this lead up to the game for the 49ers defense. The linebackers versus Alvin Kamara, especially D. Winters versus Alvin Kamara. Whether that's in the run game or in the passing game, I think that will be the most highlighted. 49ers NASCAR unit versus the Saints offensive line, and especially those tackles where you have a young player in Kelvin Banks and a injured Talise Fuaga. How good is he going to be? That's going to be a question. The Saints interior offensive line against the two different style units of the 49ers defense in the run game. Let the first group be too aggressive and then take advantage of the second team not being able to keep their pad levels low for the Saints. So that's something the 49ers are going to have to make sure they monitor and win. Robert Saleh versus Spencer Rattler, making sure he rattles Rattler and confuses him post-snap, even after his pre-snap looks. Might show two-eye shell, might show bail technique with a single high safety. Doesn't mean that's what you're going to end up seeing. It could end up being man, or it could end up being the inverse. It show a quarters look and then end up being cover 3 with the lurk. So there's a lot of fun things you can do, and I think that speed that Kellen Moore offense wants to go with, I think can be neutralized some by Robert Saleh. So going to be keeping an eye on that. And then, of course, Jawan Johnson versus the 49ers linebackers and safeties, especially highlighted by that matchup versus Marquis Siegel or Jason Pennick. And what do the 49ers do? It used to be Tashawn Gibson that would walk up and he would cover those tight ends. Is that who Marquis Siegel is? Is he the eraser safety for you? Or is it going to be Jason Pennick or a combination? I think this is a fun thing to watch. So I'm really looking forward to this matchup. 49ers versus Saints. 49ers trying to overcome some injuries to get it done. The good news is Jawan Jennings practiced. It looks like he's going to play. He is questionable. Trent Williams, according to Kyle Shanahan, practice. He's got a chance to play. He's listed as questionable. So 49ers are going to have their best opportunity to potentially go out there and win. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're listening to audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network, please give it a 5-star rating. Of course, if you were going to bet with FanDuel, the title sponsor of 49ers Cutback. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, stay safe. Remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.